Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Remembrance Day service. My name is Luna, and I am here today with Makira and Damon. We will be your MCs for this morning's Remembrance Day service. Rocky View Schools acknowledges and recognizes all the Indigenous peoples whose footprints have marked these lands for time immemorial. Together we can learn and honor the ways of knowing the indigenous peoples, all of the peoples for future generations. Today we celebrate and remember those who have served our country and gave us the freedoms we have today.
Please remember that this is a solemn and quiet presentation. Show your respect and thank you in advance for good behavior. We will now begin with Makira Vanderstout laying our Remembrance Day wreath.
Please stand and sign, O Canada, led by Victoria Standish.
We will now welcome Mr. Hill to present the story, Leslie's Lesson.
Good morning, Rainbow Creek Elementary. We hope you are enjoying our service today, our ceremony for Remembrance Day, to show that Rainbow Creek Elementary does absolutely remember, and we are thankful for the service and the sacrifice of the many people to allow us the freedom and to enjoy all of the great things that we do in Canada. So I have the pleasure today to read Leslie's last lesson to you. It is written by Maya Bouillon, illustrations by Hava Glick. Enjoy.
Kaboom! The ground shook and shook and shook. The last time was the loudest, and then there was silence. Is that what it was like? Asked Maddie, her eyes shining with wonder. Maddie snuggled closer to Granddad as they watched the Canada Day fireworks from the hillside. I suppose so, Granddad replied. He looked down at her and ruffled her red curls, but louder and a lot scarier. Then why did Leslie go? He went, Granddad whispered, like all the other young men, to fight for a peaceful world. Leslie Miller was a farmer's son. He was born in 1889 in Scarborough, Ontario. He loved growing up on the farm. He loved watching the bees collect pollen and the birds build their nests. When Leslie grew up, he became a school teacher. He was happiest when he shared the miracles of nature with his students. In 1914, the Great War broke out. Teacher Miller became Private Miller and he was sent overseas. Since he knew many languages, he soon got the job of listening to the Central Powers' radio messages and relaying their secrets to the Allies. Leslie Miller spent months near Vimy Ridge, France, preparing for what would become Canada's greatest battle. Everyone helped. The sappers prepared the land. They chopped down the oak trees that towered over the battlefield. Other soldiers were assigned to be machine gunners, riflemen, and grenade throwers. They practiced daily. The wood from the trees that the sappers cut down was used to build tunnels and trenches that stretched deep into enemy territory. Bombs were secretly planted below the enemy's trenches. The soldiers ate, slept, and hid from their enemies in the trenches. The sergeants taught the soldiers a secret strategy. It was called the creeping barrage. They practiced it day after day. At meetings, they shared their plans with the soldiers and listened to soldiers' suggestions. At night, in their Sopwith triplanes, Red, Moloch, and other airmen took to the skies to photograph the battlefield. All winter long, they prepared. When the big day came, soldiers on the ground and pilots in the air would work together. On April 9th, 1917, the battle began. It was a blustery, rainy, and snowy day. The planes were grounded. The foot soldiers were on their own. The Canadian soldiers captured most of Vimy Ridge by noon on the first day, and they finished the battle when they captured the Pimple 3 days later. Kaboom! After the last kaboom, there was silence. What Private Miller heard that day were not fireworks, but bombs. Then the dust settled and the world began to reawaken. The battle was over. Canada had won. Quiet cries replaced the kabooms. In a daze, Private Miller stared at the destroyed landscape. He saw men and guns, fire and mud. Then Leslie spotted the branch of an oak tree lying in the mud. He reached down and gently picked off a few small acorns. He put them in his pocket. Now Granddad took a deep breath and hugged Maddie. He wondered if she could imagine what the gentle soldier must have seen that day. Trees crashed to the ground. Explosives, not roots, pressed deeply into the earth. And when it was over, not one single oak tree was left standing at Vimy Ridge. Why did Leslie pick up the acorns? Maddie asked as she and Granddad reached the car. He was looking for something to remember the battle, Granddad replied softly. Nothing else was left. For a long time, Leslie Miller and the other soldiers continued to fight. Battle after battle brought them closer to the end of the war. Finally, it was time to pick up their musty backpacks and return home. Their journey took months. By 1918, the gentle soldier was home. He needed to rest and recover. He waited a long, long time, but he did not heal. He could not return to teaching. It made him sad to know that he would never teach again. If only, he would say, if only I could teach just one last lesson. Leslie Miller stayed on his father's farm. Father gave his son his own piece of land, and Leslie planted the little saplings there. He named his farm the Vimy Oaks. He planted pear trees and apple trees. He raised bees and collected honey. He nourished the saplings and he watched them grow. He sold fresh vegetables from his roadside stand. He made syrup in the old-fashioned way. He hired teenagers to drive the horses and plow the fields. And he invited newcomers from all corners of the globe to plant crops on his land. Leslie and his farm grew, and freedom grew, and broken hearts mended, and the world grew whole again. The saplings grew into mighty oak trees. Their branches spread over the woodlot and gave a home to the chipmunks and the songbirds of the forest. And the city grew around them. In time, Leslie Miller grew old and the trees were forgotten. The stories were forgotten and his farm was forgotten. And then he died. But Granddad remembered. Every year when they were small, Granddad would take the children to their old woodlot, and they ate freshly picked pears he told them about his youth when he worked at the farm called the Vimy Oaks. The last Vimy oak trees in the world are right here, Granddad would say. Autumn came. It was time to share Leslie's story with the world. Hand in hand, Maddie and Granddad walked to the grove where the crowd was gathering. There were reporters and friends and newcomers and residents. There were families and arborists and poets and artists. There were neighbors and politicians and students and gardeners. Maddie sat down under the trees and listened as Granddad talked to the crowd. There was so much to say and so little. A war, a soldier, some acorns, and a farm. And now there was a dream. We will grow new saplings from these trees, Granddad told the crowd, and we will take them back to France. The forests that were destroyed will grow again. When the people left, Granddad went to sit down beside Maddie. Leslie Miller had one last lesson to teach, Maddie mused. The day he pocketed the handful of acorns was the first time all the Canadian soldiers fought together. All Leslie could see around him was death and destruction, yet he searched for a sign of hope for the future. He found it in the acorns. Yes, agreed Granddad. Leslie Miller taught us that even in the worst situations, we should search for something good. Maddie looked up at Granddad and continued. So by planting these oak saplings at Vimy Ridge, we are closing a circle. It's our way of saying that we learned Leslie's last lesson. Maddie reached down and gently picked up a small acorn from the forest floor. She placed it in her pocket. And that is Leslie's last lesson.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. The grade 3 students will now share the Pullman song in Flanders Fields.
Yeah. honored to have Master Corporal Leanne Taylor, Mrs. Summerfield's cousin, join us today. She will be sharing about her time serving for the Canadian Armed Forces and what Remembrance Day means to her.
Hi everyone, my name is Master Corporal Leanne Taylor. I am a currently serving member of the Canadian Armed Forces and I am posted to Yellowknife, Northwest Territories in Canada's far north. I just want to send a huge thank you for the invite to be part of your ceremony today. I really appreciate that and I hope that everyone is doing excellent. So I joined the forces in 2007, so I wasn't the youngest. I was about 23 at the time, but I just felt like I wanted to go traveling and I wanted excitement in my life and adventure, and I didn't want to stay in the same place for, my entire life. So as it turns out, this was a perfect fit for me because you get to travel, you get to live multiple places, you meet all kinds of people, and the armed forces encompasses the Air Force, the Navy, and the Army. So even within those three different elements, there's lots of different jobs and trades that you can do. So it's actually there's lots to it. It's been really good for me though. So I've been posted to Edmonton. I was there for 7 years, which I like that. I asked to go to Alberta when I was done my training because my family's all there, and it's nice. And then right before Yellowknife, I came from Shiloh, which I have to say is probably my favorite so far. Shiloh is a smaller base, a smaller Army base, just outside Brandon, which is in southwest Manitoba, and it's really nice there. So right now I'm going to say it's my favorite, but I have a feeling that Yellowknife might end up my favorite, but until I've spent a winter here, we'll see if I survive the cold, and then we'll see how much I like it up here, but I'm pretty sure I will. So far throughout my career, there's been a number of memorable moments, and so I brought some pictures for you guys. I hope you don't mind. So in 2009, I went over to Afghanistan. I was on Task Force 309, Operation Athena is what they called it. Anyway, but while I was there, Princess Anne came to see us. So this is a picture, and pardon the flash, it's kind of bright, but this is her right here. So she's got brown hair and then a dark jacket, and she was just the most lovely person ever. She shook our hand and talked to all of us, and it was really special. Yeah. Also, while I was overseas, so this is me. I was out in one of the forward operating bases. Most of the time I was there, I was on Kandahar Airfield, which is a large base where a lot of the soldiers were, but I was out for 6 weeks in one of the smaller places. You can see the wall and the barbed wire and that. But anyway, this is the commanding officer. He made a trip out to the forward operating base to present us our medals right before we went home. So this is a special picture for me just because it's neat that I got presented it there. So in this picture, we're wearing the medals on our combats. We don't normally do that. We only wear them on our dress uniforms when we're at home, but this was because that's the day he presented it. So just so you don't think we look funny in the picture. What else? I also brought a funny picture. You guys cannot laugh at me, but so if you've seen the movies, you've seen whatever, you wear the camp paint on your face. Well, we're out camping. Anyway, this is a picture of me out on a field exercise with the camp paint on my face, and you can see we've got our little, I'm in the back of the truck. Sorry, the glare. We've got our little camp stoves. We're cooking, and I've got some little bread that was in the packaged ration. Anyway, so if anyone wants to see what it looks like to be in the Army, I say this and it's funny, but it's not always like this. We go out and we do this training and you're camping and you're all, you get your camp paint on, you're doing all this stuff. But I mean, in reality, half of my day, it's like an office job. I'm on the computer half the day, and then the other half, I'm out in the warehouse. So I'm a material management tech, which means it's basically just supplying stuff with people that supplying people with stuff that they need. So for example, last week actually we sent some bottled water and some rations of food up north to one of the northern communities because they were having problems with their potability of their water. So that's a good example of something I might do, is just basically we find a need, somebody needs some stuff, I get it ready, they come and pick it up, and it's gone. So it's good. It's a good job. So let's talk about why we're here today though. Remembrance Day. So what does Remembrance Day mean to me? So I will be honest, especially before I joined, but in particular before I went to Afghanistan, it was a day when you're respectful and you listen to the ceremonies and this and that, but I felt fairly detached to it. So since I've been over there and a little bit more involved, with things. I just realized that you can read a list of names of people that have passed and are fallen soldiers, but they were all people, and it's nice to try and remember them individually, and maybe even if you don't know them, but just realize that each name on every list, and honestly, there's a lot of lists. If you look at World War II and all of the wars, there's a lot of names on there, and you just have to remember that they were all somebody's dad or mom or brother, or and it just makes it a bit more personal for me. One of the things that I have one more picture to show you. So this is the Canadian Task Force headquarters in Kandahar Airfield, and this was the Afghanistan Veterans Memorial. So they built it in the compound there, and then when the Canadians left Afghanistan, they packed up this war memorial in pieces very carefully, and they brought it back. So it's set up in Ottawa. So if any of you ever go to Ottawa, you can go see the war memorial, and it was actually in Afghanistan when they first put it up. So I wasn't there when they took it down, but my friend Melissa was, and she saved me a little piece, one of the corners that broke off. So this is really special for me, and I'll put this out. I keep this in my house, and I'll put it out on Remembrance Day, and it just helps me remember to keep things personal and to really appreciate what all of our soldiers have done, all of our fallen soldiers, and everything. Yeah. So once again, I would just like to thank you very much for asking me to talk. I hope you're all having a good day, and I hope that you can all relate to Remembrance Day a little bit better. And yes, thank you. Okay.
We will now have a moment of silence. Please stand.
Please be seated. The grade 4 students will now present the song Just One Candle.
Just one candle shining in a window pane gives a light for all to see, a shining flame, shining through the darkness. It helps to show the way, like world you care. Show the people in the world you care. We would like to thank Master Corporal Leanne Taylor for joining us today and the Remembrance Day Committee for putting this event together. We will conclude our service today with a slideshow to honor the friends and family members of students at Rainbow Creek who have served our country.